Why, hello there, and welcome to Prog Chattery 777. We're talking about the music of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. We've made it to their third studio album, the aptly titled Trilogy. Certainly a contender for the worst album cover that they ever put together. Obviously, had they not done Love Beach, this would have been the worst album cover they did. But Love Beach trumps it. Of course, the album cover is not too important. The music is what's important, and I think this is a really definitive ELP album, actually. It used to be my favorite for a long time, and then I think I realized it's not so much that it's my favorite, it's just the one that sounds most like ELP. I think I like albums like Tarkus and Brain Salad Surgery a little bit more, but they're kind of extreme albums in a way. This is actually... Trilogy is probably the most commercial thing that they had put out to at this point. Obviously, the first album, the self-titled one, was a little bit aimless. You know, there's a huge range of influences, but they don't really know exactly what direction they want to go. Pictures at an Exhibition is Pictures at an Exhibition. You know, it's a rock version of a classical piece, which, you know, not necessarily the most commercial thing to do. Maybe I'm wrong. And then Tarkus is kind of like, you know, one half of the album is like a no compromise, balls to the wall, prog classic, and the second side is kind of an eclectic collection of songs. Whereas Trilogy, they put together, you know, a very well-rounded, well-structured, you know, well-thought-out album of great music. And, yeah, I think it worked out well for them. There really isn't a weak song on the album. But there just isn't anything quite as strong as something like Toccata or Carnival 9 or Tarkus. But when all is said and done, it is a really good album. It is an essential album, and you know, actually, if you've never heard Emerson, Lake and Palmer before, this is probably a really good place to start. Because, like I said, it is coherent. I mean, it feels like an album. It's not just a bunch of random stuff. You know, there is a beginning, a middle, and an end to it. It's got a nice flow to it, and you know, it is what it is. A very good album by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. There's the gatefold for you. You know, again, if this sunset had just extended all the way around, that would have been a better album cover. Or maybe, you know, if this was used, that would have been a better album cover as well. You know, for a band that was as massive and as huge as Emerson, Lake and Palmer was, they had identity problems. I think they didn't really know how to image themselves. But, you know, they weren't thinking about that. They were thinking about the music and, you know, how are they going to put together all these big compositions and that. So that's where their minds were at, obviously. Let's take apart the tracks then, shall we? Side 1 opens with the Endless Enigma. It's weird. The track listing is kind of ridiculous, and I think this probably split it up for songwriting, you know, for credit reasons. It's really just one piece called the Endless Enigma, but it's separated into the Endless Enigma Part 1, Fugue, and then the Endless Enigma Part 2. The Fugue is just a bridge, and then Part 2 is just a reprise of Part 1. But it is a really good way to open the album. I love the sneaky intro. Very intriguing. We kind of get a few little blasts of piano, some light percussion by Lake, and that intro it takes its time, and it's very slow, and it you know, sneaks into the sound space. It's got the heartbeat as well. I think this is before Dark Side, maybe not. So that heartbeat to introduce the album is another kind of a cool thing. There's a few bands that did that. Emerson, Lake and Palmer did it with this album. Jethro Tull did it with Passion Play, and then obviously Pink Floyd started out with that heartbeat bass drum as well. So yeah, it's really good. But that intro, you know, with the heartbeat, the piano, those little runs, it really serves to intrigue you, and you think, oh, that's interesting. And very slowly, the whole band comes in, and we kind of go into a cool, you know, peppy, shuffly kind of a jam, which is fantastic. You know, again, that's a great example of ELP sound. This is what the bands sound like when the three of them are just playing. And yeah, it's stellar intro. Makes its way into the song itself, which is okay. No, it's not the best song that they had ever done, but it's good. Great vocal performance as always by Greg Lake. He's a fantastic singer. And of course the verses are very, very soft and dynamic. And when the chorus comes in, please, please, very grand, and you can hear the classical influence, even though it is written by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. It's not an interpretation of some classical piece. It's just, they're using those principles to create their melodies, and it is something quite unique and quite good. In the song, it goes on. The song portion goes on for a bit. Then we get the fugue, which is it was written by Emerson, but it's taken from a lot of the classics. A lot of the principles he's applying to the piano solo and fugue are derived from many other composers. I think Mozart would certainly be one. Just name dropping these people like a boss. No, I'm not. But it's okay, it's a nice little bit of playing. It winds its way back into the Endless Enigma song again, and that wraps up the intro to the album. So, overall, it's like a 10, 12, 13-minute piece, and really, really good. I think the Endless Enigma, even though it's not one of my personal favorite songs, I think it says everything you need to know about ELP. And it gives it to you all in one piece, and it's not a sidelong thing like Tarkus. It's good. The next track on the album, I'll call it track 2 because it is, in my mind, is From the Beginning. This is the obligatory Greg Lake song, which was mysteriously not present on the Tarkus album, but we do have the Greg Lake ballad on here, and From the Beginning, I think, is my personal favorite song by Greg Lake. I think it is absolutely fantastic. I love everything about it. I love that soft acoustic intro. Again, there's with a lot of Greg Lake's early songs, it's all about the clarity of intention. And he's not using complex chords. He's not using these big grand concepts. He's got very simple lyrics, very direct lyrics. And it's just a tremendous song. It's a really, really strong piece. We also get the wonderful Emerson Moog solo at the very end. This unlike Lucky Man, I think Emerson actually had a few opportunities to kind of mess around a little bit, and actually get a solo on it that he wanted. And it is really, really good. That whole end sequence with the guitars strumming along. Palmer's just got some light percussion there, and the tone of those synthesizers is it's a magical thing. It's actually one of my favorite moments in all of ELP, even though the Lake songs are kind of separate from the majority of what they were doing elsewhere. There's also some really, really tasteful guitar playing, courtesy of Lake, which is nice. It's nice to hear Greg Lake, the electric guitar soloist, now and again. So, yeah, that's good. From the Beginning is, like I said, definitely one of the highlights of the album, for sure. Really, really good. And it's a great contrast to, all the dense madness of Endless Enigma as well. So it's good. The next song, track 3, is The Sheriff. This is a little bit more forgettable for me, but it's okay. It's a bit of fun. It's one of their fun, simple songs. It's not meant to be taken quite so seriously as something like Toccata or something like Tarkus. It kind of follows lyrically. It follows along that kind of Western theme that he introduced with Jeremy Bender. But it's nice. It doesn't have the honky-tonk piano quite so much. It's got the organ, and it's got, the full band kind of playing along. I think the reason that I don't like it as much is it doesn't have the heaviness that some of the other shorter songs that the band had done. But yeah, that's okay. It serves its place on the album, even though it's probably my least favorite song. And side 1 closes with Hoedown. This kind of became a flagship song for the band in a lot of ways. Really, really good. It's an okay version on the album. The much better version of the song can be found on the live album, Welcome Back My Friends to the Show That Never Ends. And it is a Aaron Copland song, so it's another one of another example of when ELP would cover a classical artist. In this case, a modern classical artist. Copland was still kicking when they made this, which is quite cool. And yeah, the live versions are much better because they are much faster and they're much more frantic, and and whatnot. But it's just a great setup for a rock band. Just brilliant arrangement. And again, definitive of ELP, I think anyway. And that closes off the first side. We flip the album over. Let's look at this side for a bit. Now I have to read the back. We get side B, which opens with Trilogy, the title track. And you know, I think I might be wrong. There is the one song that really does stand out on here, and that is the title track, Trilogy. This is one of my favorite ELP songs, actually. I think, again, it's a brilliant example of the band, and every little piece of information that you would want to know about ELP you can find on the song Trilogy. As you can imagine, it is in 3 movements. I think it's like an 8-minute song. And it's fantastic. We get some wonderful classically inspired piano that introduces the song, coupled with Lake's wonderful singing on top of that. And you know, it's kind of a love song, sort of a lyric, but just the grandness of the piano, coupled with the words he's singing and the way that he's singing it, is just magical. It's really, really, really cool. And that serves as a wonderful intro. Brings us to the second movement, the kind of bridge section, which again, one of my favorite moments in all of ELP. I just love that. Again, it's the ostinato pattern. He's got one thing going. Emerson's got one thing going with one hand, and he's soloing over the other. I just love that. Really, really cool stuff. And again, that just incessant, constant repetition of that is just amazing and relentless, totally relentless. It goes on for a couple of minutes, and we end up to the third movement of the song, which is, again, is utterly fantastic. Little more jazzy, probably. The bass line kind of swings and bounces around a little bit more than in other cases. Maybe not. I don't know. But the cowbell chorus is really fun. The cowbell courtesy of Palmer that comes in there. And we kind of get the second part of the song, if you like. And it's fantastic. It is a classic example of you know, wonderful progressive rock that we like so much. And yeah, definitely the best thing on the album, Trilogy, and definitely the best, or not definitely the best, but possibly one of the best things they ever did, in my books, personally. So yeah, there's Trilogy, the title track. Track 2 of side 2 is Living Sin. And this is one of my favorite ELP tracks as well, actually. It's one of my favorite short, heavy songs that they put together. Bitch's Crystal is certainly a highlight one for me, but I really, really like Living Sin. That organ sound is, you know, it's just, it's so heavy. And again, people forget that, you know, they think, oh, the progressive band that played all the classical stuff, but they really could rock, and you get that with Living Sin. I just love that riff. Great stuff. And it seems so far removed from a lot of the classical stuff, to me anyways. Maybe that figure is classically inspired, I'm not really sure, but just a great proggy rock song, and it's only about 3 minutes. Again, I would say it's a good introduction to someone who's never heard of ELP but likes kind of heavy classic rock, or you know, likes stuff like Deep Purple or Zeppelin. And Living Sin, it's great stuff. And track 3 winds up the album, closes the second side. Abaddon's Bolero. Bolero in 4/4 time. So, you know, aside from the fact that they named it incorrectly, it's pretty good. It might be a little bit too long, overcooked for its purposes, but it's cool, and it you know, there's that repetitive nature and that slow building. It could have been. It might have been like a one of Lake's suggestions to do something like that, because he was doing Mars with King Crimson, later became known as the Devil's Triangle. But that whole, just, you know, here's a simple figure, we're gonna repeat it, And every time we repeat it, we're going to add more, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to reach this cacophony of crazy sound. I think that Mars / The Devil's Triangle by King Crimson is much better than Abaddon's Bolero, but, you know, it's cool. I'm not sure if it ends the album quite. It feels like a bit of padding, really. So it doesn't have the grand finale quality. I mean, if they put Trilogy at the very end, I guess that's the other thing I love about Trilogy. After all the madness, we get that kind of blues rundown. If they put Trilogy at the end of the album, I think that would have been a much more grand way to close the album. But then you can't really have Abaddon's Bolero open the second side either, so. Or maybe they could have just written a different song. Who knows? Who am I to judge? I wasn't there, and I don't think I'd be able to write something as good as this on my own, that's for sure. I'd be able to make a better album cover, though. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. That's Trilogy by ELP. Definitely one of the absolute essential components of the discography. You need to have Trilogy in your life. I mean, that's probably the real main run of ELP from now. For me, would be Tarkus, Trilogy, and Brain Salad Surgery. Those are probably the essential buys that you'd want to grab. And of those three, I think I like Trilogy the least, but I mean, they're three spectacular albums, so yeah, you gotta get Trilogy. You gotta get it all. It's all great. It's all great. Although, I'm sure if you're watching this channel, you probably already own all these albums, so who am I telling you what to buy? Shucks. And on that rambling note, I will sign off, and I will thank you. Send me a like, send me a subscribe, throw me comments, and we will see you all in the future. Stay tuned, everybody. Thank you.